Eugene Robinson is here as promised. Good evening, sir. What a week.
Incredible week. Just tell me it's over. Because
it's almost over.
I keep looking at the phone and, crazy stories keep coming up, and there's Rudy, and then he takes it back, and Trump is meeting with Wayne LaPierre, and, it just seems to keep going on.
Yeah. I'm curious, with all these reports, what you think of the way that impeachment has taken hold this week. Unlike any other week I've seen, and you're our eagle-eyed observer of Washington, I wonder what you think. And that's not just in the House where we've seen it. It's not just senators obviously putting up different types of pressure, at least for the co-equal branch, with regard to saying, well, you got to get us the whistleblower complaint. And then the New York Times coming out for only the second time in the history of the United States to back the impeachment of a sitting president. Altogether, what do you see as shifting here?
Well, what shifted is that we all became aware of a case of wrongdoing that is, to my mind at least, just tailor-made for the idea of impeachment, because you have this massive breach of the public trust. You have this massive abuse of power. You have a president who withholds $400 million in military aid to Ukraine so he can use that as leverage to get the president of Ukraine to order prosecutors to dig up some dirt on President Trump's political opponent, Joe Biden. That is not the first impeachable thing Donald Trump has done, in my view, but it's so clear, and it so goes to the heart of the very idea of public service and public responsibility, and thus abuse of the public trust, that I think that's why. I think that's why it seemed to go almost overnight. People look at it and say, oh, we have no choice. And so you had all those Democrats who had been really reluctant to go there. Nearly half the caucus had been reluctant to go there at all. And then almost literally overnight, just taking a look at the situation, they said, this has to happen. And the most important one, of course, who did that was Nancy Pelosi. And those who, who don't think she's serious about it or thinks she's still reluctant about it. She was on Morning Joe this morning. I was on the set there, too. And I can just tell you, when she points in a direction and says this is where we're going, you really can take to the bank that that's where the House is headed. So she's going to follow through on this impeachment inquiry, and we'll see where it leads. But I think I have a pretty good idea where it's going to lead.
That's fascinating, given your proximity to it. You and I both, as reporters, you always check what everyone's saying, and sometimes the argument on the other side is weak. Sometimes once you hear it, it makes you rethink. That's why we talk to so many sources. Last night, we heard directly from a Trump campaign official on 2020 to hear how they are presenting this. And what struck me, and I'd love your analysis of what I'm about to play, was they're still struggling to figure out which things they're denying and which things they're admitting in an area that, according to the Congress, is impeachable, which doesn't seem like the greatest balancing of a message, let alone the substance. Take a look. The Ukraine call notes, even before you get to the whistleblower, have the president saying, do me a favor, go after a domestic rival, Joe Biden.
That is not what the transcript says, and you know better than that, Ari. He says, do me a favor, look into corruption.
Quote, the president wanted allegations of corruption involving an American official, that's Biden, to be investigated by Ukraine. Do me a favor, investigate Biden.
And I'll reiterate to you what the actual phone call said. It talked about looking into Ukrainian meddling in the 2016 election, and it also talked about investigating the former vice president of the United States.
Right, investigating Joe Biden as a rival. Eugene?
Yeah. Ari, I watched that last night too, and was equally confused and at times amused by the fact that he couldn't decide what to acknowledge was true, where to stand, basically, to say, oh, it's okay, the president can do anything he wants, or actually the president didn't do it because there was no quid pro quo, or actually the president did something else. And you've got all these messengers out there trying to parrot, talking points that are internally inconsistent and that don't make sense. And then, as sort of on somewhere out in outer space, you've got Rudy Giuliani out there saying, giving every possible crazy answer to every possible question, and what you have is kind of a messaging nightmare right now. And you have a lot of Republicans, especially Republican senators, who are just sort of pulling the covers over their heads and hoping nobody notices they're still around.
Well, I've never thought of Rudy quite as an astronaut in outer space, but, with him it comes down to one small gaffe for Rudy is one large gaffe for the White House's Ukrainian scandal. We'll reflect on all of it. The week, I assure you, Gene, is actually over. We'd love to call on you again next week and the week after that, sir.
I'll be around.
Thank you. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.